Hello everyone, and welcome to week 5. Wow, hard to believe we're already this far along in this series. We're looking at following Jesus as the answer to that big question, what is the meaning of my life? Starting with the greatest commandment and the Great Commission, we get 4 key steps we can take to follow Jesus more closely. This week, we're looking at the next step we're calling invite, part of that connect and invite piece of the pie. The big church word for this is evangelization. Now, that word might, right off the bat, make you feel a bit uneasy. You might think of folks on the street corner with a microphone when you hear the word evangelization, but there's a lot more to it than that. We also might think it's the job of the priest to do all the inviting and evangelizing, but church teaching says otherwise. The Catholic Church teaches that every single follower of Jesus is responsible for evangelism. Hence, the title of this week for the series is called We Are Called by Name. The call to invite is a call for each and every one of us. But what could this look like for you and I in daily Libertyville life? Well, first off, let's define the aim of invite. Pope Paul VI said that the aim of evangelism is interior change or conversion. Interior change or conversion. That's what we're aiming for when we invite someone into our church family. What does it take to be part of that process? Well, St. Paul gave us a great example in the second reading this past weekend of what sharing the gospel well looks like. He says, "For our gospel did not come to you in word alone, but also in power and in the Holy Spirit and with much conviction." Clearly, this is something that involves head and heart and our connection with the Holy Spirit. And one very effective way of beginning this journey with someone is to simply share your own faith story, to talk about your own interior change or conversion. Let me use an analogy here. I'm a Bears fan. My wife is from California. She was not brought up with the same appreciation of Chicago sports as I was, and I really wanted to share this experience of supporting the team with her. So what did I do? First, I told her my story of being a Bear fan, about how my dad would watch the games, keeping his own stats with 8 AM FM radios with Bears play-by-play announcers on in what we called affectionately the Bear Den, which always had the windows open no matter what the weather was, so we could feel like we were at Soldier Field. True story. We listened to the fight song and I showed her pictures of my dad, my brother and I at Soldier Field. She saw my enthusiasm and passion as I told my story. And finally, we went to a game together, which was actually our first official date. Sharing my own story and enthusiasm drew her in to want to experience what I had. I think there's a lot we can draw from there when it comes to evangelization. When we share our own stories, it's personal. We open up and we're vulnerable. Bishop Robert Barron once said that when it comes to inviting people into our church, we have to first establish trust. And I think that real, authentic trust is important. I think sharing our own story of faith is an important part of establishing that trust. Now, that assumes that we've articulated our personal story of faith before, and I realize that many of us might not have. Have you ever tried? Sharing our story and inviting others into our church family also assumes that we ourselves are raving fans of the church. Well, more than that, of course, but what I mean is we have true joy about being Catholic Christians. Pope Francis once observed that there are Christians whose lives seem like Lent without Easter. We don't want to be that. The good news of God's saving love that we are to spread is good, really good, and it's a cause for joy. I believe that when it comes down to it, our faith is attractive because of its deep joyfulness. Now, some of us might not be there just yet. You might still be exploring. If that's you, keep digging. Or when you're honest with yourself, you might feel lukewarm about your faith. Now, if you're in a small group and struggling with that, I think you're in the right place to start to move off the fence or to wrestle with some of those things. The key is keep seeking. God meets you there. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, our faith tells us that everyone is meant for a relationship with God. We heard what I think is evidence of this in the first reading this past weekend when God called Cyrus, a foreign emperor, by name. Cyrus didn't even know God, and yet God called him. Everyone is called. And the church and every follower of Jesus is called to invite others into that. This is the Great Commission. It's our assigned mission. The title of our theme this week is We Are Called by Name. You might say that we are called by name and called to invite others by name. So my challenge to you is to try putting your faith story together. St. Peter tells us in his first letter to always be ready to give a reason for our hope. You never know. You might discover something about God's presence in your life that you hadn't noticed before you started actually putting pen to paper. So 2 main points today. First, we are called to invite others into our faith. And second, to do that, we have to establish trust, which often includes sharing our own faith story. There's plenty of room in the St. Joe's family and the Catholic family overall. The church needs you and I to call others by name, to invite. So let's do it. See you Sunday.